In this episode, we're going to be talking to Erick, a top producer in the life insurance telesales space, selling IULs, final expense, you name it. He has sold it and is selling it to this day. And we're going to be talking about how he went from buying leads from vendors to completely firing his vendor to now generating his own leads and doing $20,000 to $40,000 per month and growing. So Erick, appreciate you coming on here, man. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course, dude. Well, it's funny because we've been we've known each other for a little bit now, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it's been. And you've obviously been through a lot of transitions in the meantime, right?
Yeah.
What is I want to start you off like, okay, how do you even what was your entrance into the life insurance space?
It was with IULs,
Yeah.
primarily with my previous IMO. It was
Yeah.
FFL, so we got into IULs. Then I transitioned over to final expense, but with veterans specifically. And
Yeah.
then I gave out a try with final expense, like normal final expense. And in my opinion, it has worked out a little better. Normal final expense and veterans conversion rate. So usually with veterans, it was like a conversion rate of like 3 to 4. With final expense, I'm up at like 8.
It's huge, bro. So you what how was it like just selling IULs? Like if you were to go back and tell your past self, okay, here's the best way, the fastest way to be able to get to 20K a month again. Would you recommend like a newer agent doing IULs, or would you recommend final expense, or where would you recommend somebody like that?
A new agent, I would probably recommend final expense off rip because it is a product
Yeah.
that you don't have to learn the product. With IULs, you have to learn the product, you have to learn how to structure it, how to build it, which, at this point, I spent almost a year there, so I know how to do that properly. You have to know whether it's a
Yeah.
minimum face max fund it, if they want to overfund it. You have to dissect the client a lot for what they want. But with
Mm-hmm.
final expense, it's more of like I want 10,000, 20,000. I want to do it for this, for funeral coverage. What is it that I want it for primarily? You provide that to them. You provide some value, what it's gonna do for them. If they feel it's correct, obviously, we keep them at that emotional standpoint. And it's just you work on your sales pitch with final expense, and with IULs, you work on your sales pitch as well as your product knowledge because final expense is much easier to sell. There's not
Mm.
really a product. It's life insurance, 10,000 for this price, and that's it. You know, so it's
Yeah.
definitely like the learning curve.
Why'd you make the
The
Yeah, go
learning
ahead.
curve is much easier with final expense.
Yeah. Because you're only having to learn one
Yeah.
thing, right? You're having to learn how to sell rather than how to sell plus show an illustration plus a lot of product knowledge plus a lot of industry knowledge plus whatever it is, right? What's a death benefit? What's a cash value accumulation? And I think what's unfortunately a lot of people don't get that training. They get the sales training, but with a product like an IUL, and then you see all these products that are just absolutely horrible. They're structured poorly. The client's just getting wrecked on the back end, and they're not going to know for another 5-10 years that it's actually structured incorrectly, right? So how do you make sure for the IUL agents out there, like how do you make sure that the policy is structured correctly to make sure that it's doing the best for the client?
Well, in the form of an IUO, you want to mainly focus on what it is that they want it for. So when I used to, obviously, when I
Yeah.
build these products, it's, what's your goal? What's your main goal? Do you want to focus on the cash value? Do you want to focus on a form of becoming your own bank, right? Or do you want to focus on death benefit to leave something behind to your family? Because I myself have an IUL, right? But I have one for life insurance purposes, for death benefit purposes. I have one that's going to last until I'm 120, and it pays out a higher lump sum than I ever put into it, right? But then other individuals, they want it for the cash value. They want it for the S&P 500, 6% compound interest every year, 0% when, it drops
Yeah.
down in the negatives, as well as, the ceiling that it has. So at that point, you have to gather what it is that that person wants and be able to build it accordingly to what their desires are. right? And just accommodate everything according to them. So whether minimum face max funded, easy solve for a death benefit, whatever route you decide to take, just make sure that the client is what they want. That's the easiest way to honestly do right by them and avoid a chargeback because you don't want to
Yeah.
get a chargeback, 2 months
Yeah.
in because they received the packet and it's not what you told them, right? Because I've had that happen where clients are like,
Mm. Mhm.
they don't cancel it because I explained it to them properly and I told them what was gonna happen. And then they call me and they're like, "Hey Eric, I saw this on the packet." It's like, yeah, that's exactly what we went over. It was this, and this. If you look at year 10, year 15, year 20, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you're right. That is exactly everything you told me word for word." Right? So at that point, people
Yeah.
are going to look at their packets. I've noticed that with final expense, these people
Mhm.
they kind of get it and forget it. And then with IULs, they get it, they look at the packets, they review it, they kind of look into the wording. It's like, oh, this is non-guaranteed, so
Mm.
they might have questions for that. That's something you're gonna have to deal with. You're gonna have to answer them correctly.
Yeah.
Like this is non-guaranteed because we don't know how the S&P 500 is going to perform, but obviously it hasn't performed bad. It's been performing at 10% consistently in the last 20 years. So we should probably see in the next 20 years another 10%. And I always tell them, if the S&P 500 has 4 bad years in a row, get out of America. Like get out. we're done. Like just get out. Like the
Yeah.
S&P 500 runs our economy basically. So that's all there is
Mhm.
to it.
Yeah, it's important, man. So let's talk about your transition from IULs to final expense. Why'd you transition your business to just solely selling final expense?
It's a lot easier for newer agents. It's a lot easier product to sell,
Yep.
and in my personal perspective, I believe in life insurance as life insurance. I don't believe as life insurance as a way to get rich quick scheme, you know. So I
Yeah.
believe in it
Become your own
exactly.
banks, right?
So I believe in life insurance as what life insurance is. I get this death benefit. I pass away, my family gets the money, which is why I have a policy, right? Whether it's an IUL or it's a whole life, I have a life insurance policy for life insurance purposes only, not for anything else. Now, if I want to dive into
Yeah.
obviously the finances of it and build some cash value, that might be later on. But I felt like final expense was a little bit better and more rewarding spiritually, I guess you would say, um, for I guess for the soul, because you're
Mm,
helping the elderly, the people that actually need the life insurance that are going to pass away in the next 10, 15 years, and you're actually doing something
yeah.
to help them. So I guess it's more aligned with my beliefs in that aspect.
That's cool, right? And you and I started working together when you originally were selling veteran final expense, right? And so now you recently transitioned from okay, veteran final expense to actually just selling like broad final expense. And I think what's interesting is I don't know where this comes from, but I think people are just so fixed on like the veteran final expense niche. And like you said, right, your conversions have literally doubled since you've done that before, and that was with a vendor compared to now actually running your own campaigns. What's the biggest difference or shift that you're seeing going from the veteran final expense to selling your own?
So the biggest shift that I've noticed, obviously aside from the conversion rate, right, because it's a huge conversion rate, is some people might be more focused on the. Can you hear me good? Okay, some people might be more focused on
Yeah.
like the veterans final expense and everything like that because it's just income at that point. I'm gonna be honest. It's the policies are higher, so whether it's 3 or 4%, the average veteran policy is around. I believe when I was doing it for me was 1,400, 1,500 was the average policy,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it was mainly simplified issued whole life, right? So it was mainly leveled programs, day one coverage. So
Yeah.
veterans are harder to sell. They're a lower conversion rate, but when you sell one, it'll be a higher policy premium as well as it'll be a higher likely of a simplified issued program, right? So there's multiple things there. Obviously, you get your true comp, you
Yeah.
get basically you get more money on the back end, right? But with final expense, I've noticed that each policy is around, it averages out to 900, 1,000 to 900 around there. So when you sell, I
Right.
was at 3-4%. I'm basically selling two every time I sold one before. So because I'm at eight now. So basically 1,000 plus 1,000 is 2,000. That's more than
Yeah.
1,400. So you will make more over here with normal final expense from what I've seen. And I particularly, the way that I like to work is I prefer to sell a lot of a little because once you get a chargeback, it's not a huge chargeback. So I prefer to sell a lot of a little than a little of a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm explaining myself correctly.
Yeah, I mean that makes perfect sense, right? Because I think that even with IULs, it's funny because like it seems like you went down a rung and then you went down another rung, but it seems like you're actually converting at a higher clip, and now you actually have full control of your source through it, right? What was the main thing that you were like that really why did you decide to instead of buy leads, why did you decide to pivot your niche to be able to sell just final expense and take it fully in control for the marketing side?
I've always wanted to get into marketing, so I've always wanted to own my own marketing, and I kind of just decided to take that extra leap, like basically as soon as I could. Obviously when we spoke, I was like one of those like second call closes, right, for you, and I would have closed on the first call if I didn't have another business
Yeah.
that I had just recently started at that point, right? Which obviously this is gonna help. I've realized that
Yeah.
as I came in here I've realized that this marketing business is going to help that one as well because I've always wanted to get into marketing for the simple aspect of the world runs on marketing.
Mm-hmm.
If I can figure marketing out, whatever industry I go to,
Yep.
it'll click immediately. Whether it's restaurants, e-commerce, life insurance, health insurance, whatever business it is that I'm doing, if I understand the marketing aspect of it, I will succeed, and there's no way to fail. And it goes back to Alex
Yeah.
Hermosi, one of the best marketers. That's his whole thing. His whole thing is buying a business, marketing it, selling it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. Life is marketing and sales.
Is taking over your marketing harder than you thought or easier than you thought, or like what's kind of your experience
A
been
little
the
bit of
past
both.
few months doing it?
Once it's hard to get in and understand the system, but once you understand how the process works, it's easy to at least on my
Yeah.
perspective, it was easy to pick up on kind of how it worked, and it's easy to duplicate. Once you something clicks, it's easy to duplicate in marketing. I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed that. So that's the only thing.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges that you've seen?
Obviously with Facebook, some of the challenges is Facebook as a whole. So sometimes you'll put up a campaign, yeah, that you'll
Oh
put up
my
a campaign
gosh, dude.
and it does horrible. You duplicate the campaign like how we say to do, and then
Yeah.
you just start running that one and it does amazing. And at
Yep.
that point, it's like, what did I do wrong? And it's like
Yeah.
it's Facebook. So the hardest
Yep.
part of marketing, once you understand everything,
Yeah.
is dealing with Facebook. That's what I've noticed that the key is just
Yeah.
dealing with Facebook as a whole.
Yeah, and I think for you guys watching, I think the biggest thing to really consider and just know when you do step into owning your marketing is that you own the problems that it comes with it as well, right? Your lead vendor would have had to go through that, and you just have to take one problem at a time, right? And I'd rather have the problems to deal with because there's so much upside on the other side of it rather than just not, right? Having casting all the control out and taking a lower upside, right, with the downside too. And I think with the marketing side, like now, right now is just like a really rough time for marketers in general, right? Like you're faced with the election, which like there's people I'm not gonna say names, but like there's literally presidential candidates spending $1 million+ a day on advertisement, right? Trying to win a vote, and then you have that plus Black Friday, plus Christmas, plus AEP. It's like, dude, this is crazy. But what's cool is if you weather those storms, that's what everybody faces. That's what everybody goes through. You can't really you can't fight against that. You just have to weather it. You do the best you can through it, and you keep moving forward. And then January hits, and boom, costs go down, and you just rip in January, right? So for you, what are some of the things that have been like? Well, I guess when you came into it, did you think it was going to be easy, or did you think it was going to be hard, or what were your thoughts and expectations there? And then what has been your experience um,
I thought it was
being
going to be
inside?
harder than what it was. So for me, it was actually, I guess,
What do you think was
setting
going to be
everything up,
hard? I'm just
like the
curious.
whole getting the ad, building the ad, creating the ad, then uploading it to Facebook, then creating the campaign, making sure the campaign works, making sure you're reaching the right audience. So I thought everything was going to be difficult, but obviously with your coaching and everything, it was a lot much easier. And I guess that's why I found it to be simple, to be honest. So that's why that's why I said
Yeah,
right now that I'm in it, I probably would have liked to get into it before I did the other business and on the first call that we had, because I would have
yeah,
been much more ahead now. So and that's the
yeah,
truth. But I didn't, and we
yeah,
can't ignore that. So
yeah,
we just gotta keep moving forward. But it was a lot much simpler than expected.
yeah. And I think it's definitely it's one of those things because there's different people, right? Like what we do, and I think that's what we saw, right? Like it was purely just a coaching program, helping, teaching, training, but then we're like this upfront part takes the longest for most people. So we're gonna do it for you, and then your campaign's up and running. I mean, yours you had contracts moving, but within like once you actually had contracts going, it was pretty quick to be able to get it up and running because we just literally import winning ads right now into that campaign. You just turn it on, start running it in your account. And there's different things that can happen. There's disablements that happen, and that's like completely like out of my control, out of anybody's really control. The only thing that you can do is just hope and pray that Meta's on your side, right? And get a new ad account if you have to. But it's cool to see like your progression throughout the whole process and like showing up and like winning, right? What to other people out there, right? Like thinking or considering like, okay, should I do this myself? Should I watch YouTube videos or should I actually like hire somebody else to like teach me throughout the process? Like what would you tell other agents in your similar position?
That's a very good question, and I've learned throughout this whole year. I've been focusing on growth and growing, obviously, because that's what I think is my next step, focusing on growing everywhere. And I've come to realize, and everyone says it, every
Yeah.
convention you probably go to that are good conventions, they're gonna say it. Every millionaire that has done it goes to it. They're called master classes. It's basically just coaches. So get somebody on your side. Get a coach on your side. You
Yeah.
want to grow? Get the right person by your side. You want to scale? Get the right person by your side. Partner up,
Mhm.
get a coach, do something to get that person by your side, which is why I took that, I guess, that leap of faith and into you to get that coach, at least, start somewhere with one coach by my side. And that's just how I see it from now on. So if I want to get into a new avenue, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for somebody that's succeeding, and I'm going to try to see if it's possible to get him on my side. And that's just going to lead to higher success.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, man. As we wrap up, I have to ask, like, there's somebody out there that is probably like in a similar position as you that was like buying leads, running it yourself, like running it, and just kind of following the system that how it was. Was there ever a moment that you're like skeptical of it, and then you had to overcome that? You took the leap of faith, and then you obviously were rewarded on the back end. Like, I bet there's other people out there that had to have been in similar positions, like not sure if it's gonna work or not. Is this guy gonna really like actually help me? Like what was that
Yes, I
for
did.
you
I did.
if you had
So
one of those
that's
moments?
another reason. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't close on the first call. Um, Obviously, it was much easier on the second call
Yeah.
because so in the agency that I was in, there was a person that knew another person that was like his boy, his friend. right? That he actually was supposedly in your program. So I never met the person, I never knew anything, but he told me and he showed me the numbers of his friend, and he went from, I believe,
Yeah.
30K it was, to like 60K a month. And at that point, I was like, okay, so you
Hmm.
sound reliable when I spoke with you. Your sales pitch on me, right? Because as a salesperson, you're always, when somebody's selling you, you're judging their sales pitch. Your sales pitch was amazing, right? It was super good. I almost bought
Of
on the
course.
first
Always.
time if it wouldn't have
Always.
been for that other business, right? So I thought your sales pitch was amazing. So I was like, all right, he's already good at what he does. I can tell. Um, then I already had the reliability from that other friend that what you did was obviously correct, and you're a reliable person. So at that point, it's just everything's gone. Like I didn't have any rebuttals, and it happened naturally. So for me, there was that form
Yeah.
of like, oh, I've never met this person. This is my first time seeing him. I saw his ad, and I'm just taking a leap of faith. Even clicking on the ads, which I never do, and I've never done ever again. Clicking on your ad was the first ad I've ever clicked on Instagram, and look where we are, right? But yeah. So
That's
it's
hilarious,
it
dude.
was just like the right moment, right time for everything, and it was like at one point it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to take a leap of faith. I have to trust God and just go with it. So that's what I did. But there was that tension, and I would just say, take
Yeah.
the leap. Everyone in the system is trustworthy. I mean, I don't know if you show, sorry, my accent's coming out. If you show the chat here, but there's the chat that everyone's in, that we help each other. So everyone's always consistently helping each other in the community, which is that was one of the things that as soon as I came in, I saw,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, that made me feel even better.
Yeah. And that's important, dude. Like I think like people don't understand like how lonely this industry can be, but also like that you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's what's really important when you are like thinking about not only just like, okay, who's the mentor, who's the person that I'm like actually like paying for them to help me, but I think you have to have a community around because I guarantee that the value that you've gotten has not only come from me, but it's come from like Elijah, the marketing head inside, the coming from the community people like you literally put in any question any time of day and you're probably going to get an answer from somebody in like
Yeah.
I don't know less than 30 minutes if that. I think during the day you're going to get an answer within 5 minutes, maybe even like 30 seconds, right? People are always in that chat, which is cool, and you get real-time feedback, real-time like questions answered, right? If you're in an application, there's people constantly like asking questions. Hey, they have this. Where would you guys go? Boom, day one coverage with whoever Royal Neighbors would take them or whatever it is, right? And so I think it's important to have that community. And honestly, like I've had the same experiences with you. Like, dude, at some point you can only do so much research. You can only look up so much information. You can only vet the person so much. You can only talk to them so much. You can only trust the sources so much. At some point it just comes down to you making the decision, right? And if you feel like my mindset's always been if it's going to get me at least closer rather than further away from my goal, I have to take the jump every day. Like I literally did that today, which is funny. And I'm like, oh, this is tough. This is challenging. I'm facing problems in my business. Um, but what's the alternative? If I don't make a change, if I don't actually decide to do this, if I don't actually take the leap, then what? Like I just have this problem stuck and I have to keep facing it in my business. So I think if you're out there watching right now, everybody faces it. You got to take the jump, take the leap of faith, do as much due diligence as you can, but at some point, just take the jump and bet on yourself, right? So, where can people reach out to you, man? I know that you're building an agency. I know you're really choosing growth this year, and you've obviously grown so much already. Where can people reach out to you, follow you on your journey as you continue to progress as
Yeah,
in like
so
into an
I
agency
guess
owner
they
now?
could follow my Instagram. It'll be Erick, ERICK M_30. That'll be the best way to reach out to me. That is a private one. And then I also have my insurance one, which is Erick, ERICK, Life, INS. Pretty simple to follow up. And on either both of those, you'll be able to contact me for anything and reach out.
Boom. Yeah. Guys, Erick's a great guy. And if you loved this video, appreciate it. Drop in the comments down below. Show Erick some love. And what's your biggest takeaway from here that you're going to be taking into the like moving forward in your business. So appreciate you watching. Subscribe right now to the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.